Welcome to another trip down the Bourbon Road with your hosts, Jim and Mike. So grab a glass of your favorite bourbon and kick back.
Hey, this is Big Chief from the Bourbon Road, and you know what? This Texas trip is just getting more amazing by the minute. Before we get started with our episode today, you know what you need to go check out? seldomseenmaple.com. This is a small maple farm up in Ohio where they're aging maple syrup in bourbon barrels for 6 to 9 months, extracting that bourbon out of the barrel and putting inside that maple syrup. That way you can pour it in your cocktail, or if you're a fat guy like me, you can pour it on your waffles or pancakes or some chicken and waffles like I like. So check them out today, seldomseenmaple.com. All right, listeners. So you know I'm on the road for a couple days in Texas, and that old red cherry of mine, it found its way down to Hye Texas, and I'm at Garrison Brothers Distillery, and we got their Master Distiller sitting in a big old leather chair with me today. Donis Todd. You're the man, the myth, the legend out here, right?
Well, I don't know if I'd take it that far, but I'm Donis.
That's almost like a Greek god name.
Well, it was the 70s. My mom says that was the best decade ever, so she hung that handle on me.
That's a great name. First, I want to say thank you for your service. You served in the Air Force. We really appreciate our veterans out there.
Well, I appreciate your service and thank you.
Yeah, but we're here to drink whiskey though, right?
We are.
So let's get straight to that whiskey. We've had this on the show before, but tell me what we're drinking first here.
Yeah, we're going to start off with Garrison Brothers Texas Straight Bourbon Whiskey, our small batch. Small batch is the backbone. It's the workhorse of Garrison Brothers, and it's really how it all starts for me every day. Our entire lineup is all based off of my small batch bourbon. And the reason is because I still hand select every single barrel. Almost every day I'm out in the barns tasting barrels, and I'm looking for 50 to 55 barrels to marry together to support small batch bourbon. It is a vintage strategy. You and I are enjoying some of the 2022. This is batch 2022-4. I'll make around 100 batches this year. I pick 50 to 55 barrels every time we got a clipboard full of POs. So hope you enjoy it.
And what did you say the mash bill was again?
The mash bill for everything that we're going to enjoy is 74% corn, 15% wheat, 11% barley malt. All the grains are right here from Texas. We actually have relationships with the farmers that build the grain, that grow the grains for us. And our corn is all white corn.
Any special wheat there?
So we use a 2-row red soft winter wheat, which, you know, a lot of distillers do. The reason it's special to me is I know the folks that grow it. I know the sacrifices they make, and it means something that it's grown by people that I know. I'm going to do better with it because I'm not buying it off a commodities market. I'm buying it folks that I get a Christmas card from.
Yeah. Real farmers out there trying to make a real living, right?
That's right.
Just regular old Americans. You got to kind of love that that we still have that in America today.
Yeah, you know, it means something to me. It means something to Garrison Brothers that, you know, we have a relationship with the folks that are involved with our business, and we truly believe that, yeah, this is beautiful, enjoyable liquid in the glass, but it's really just a result of amazing friendships that we've built over the last couple of decades.
Now, can you explain to our listeners what 2-row means?
Yeah, so I mean, it's just the actual grain. When you're looking at it, there's different strands of, you know, there's all different types of trees, and there's all different types of wheat and different types of mazes. So we use a 2-row. So, you know, if you could visualize or, you know, picture in your mind the head of the wheat, there's 2 rows of seeds there.
Man, when I'm nosing this, I get that. You ever been to Cabela's and they have that kettle corn up there just cooking, and you can smell that almost like a burnt toffee. It smells so beautiful. I've drank this several times before. That's no surprise because, you know, it's wheated. So I absolutely love it. But the nose on this is just fantastic. A little bit of smokiness there I could get from like maybe that campfire smoke, s'mores and stuff. But that kettle corn cooking, that's my biggest thing with this.
Yep. It's a pretty heavy mash bill, at 74%. That is a pretty heavy corn ratio, but those corn oils, it really comes through and you get that warm butter, that caramel, that popcorn. It's really coming through there. And at 15% wheat, I'm a big wheater myself. I love the sweetness that it brings, not only, as you nose it, but to the front of your palate. And, it really holds it all together right through the middle of the palate. And then our Texas heat here, just amazing extraction from our custom barrels that are toasted and then charred. Great white American oak that's yard seasoned, for anywhere from 24 to 36 months. And then you do a really heavy toast on that, and then you char it. And at the molecular level, we've really changed that white American oak. And then our intense Texas heat, we get to enjoy that extraction. So hope you enjoy it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That's just yumminess in a glass right there. That you're right about that corn. It does have that sweet corn taste. Chief Cheese used to make this corn. It's like almost a corn pudding, and I kind of get that out of that Chief Cheese packet. You take, I guess it's a sweet corn. I don't know what that is. Cream corn, and you pour it in that mix, almost like cornmeal, and it kind of spoons out. But I get that right there. Not supposed to eat that anymore as an older guy, but it's still good. I don't care who you are. That caramel corn I was talking about, Cracker Jacks, any of that, it's in that glass right there.
Yeah. And that's just something that I just love about bourbon, about Garrison Brothers bourbon, is what I call positive associations. So you just had 3 or 4 of them just from a nose and a taste of bourbon that's just made in Hye Texas. And there's something special about that. Those positive associations just put you back at a different time, and you get to draw on those experiences when you're having a new experience. And that's pretty powerful.
Well, to be honest, Donis, this is not my first experience with Garrison Brothers, because I've emptied several bottles of it before. You guys have always been kind to the Bourbon Road. Dan and Blake, your PR guy, man, they've always been great. And it's nice to finally come out here and see what it's all about. I'm a Texas boy, so I get the Texas dry heat. And we're here in the kind of wintertime, and that's the dry time really here. But in the Texas heat, though, I could see those barrels just cooking.
Yeah, this week is a perfect example. It was, we had a low of 17. The wind was blowing. They said it felt like 5. It felt miserable to me. I didn't need a number on it. And this Friday, it's going to be 70 degrees. So in a week period, we went from something that feels like 5, and it was 17, to 70 degrees. So that's an amazing cycle inside the 25,000 barrels that we have aging here on the ranch.
A lot of people, try to compare ages of different regions. And I always say that's unfair, right? It would be like comparing a Scotch to a bourbon, the 2 ages and stuff, right? Because what's it take to make a good Scotch? 18, 30 years. To make a Kentucky bourbon, Jimmy Russell would say 8 to 12. For a Texas whiskey, what would be your age on that?
Yeah, I'd have to add some variables in there. I have to add, are we talking about my 15-gallon barrels, or are we talking about my 53-gallon barrels? Because we get into that surface ratio.
Sure.
So, if that 15-gallon barrel, I love it at 4 years old. I hate them at 8. It tastes like a soggy toothpick, wet grass. I'm not into that stuff. I'm into this sweet corn, beautiful caramel, vanilla, chocolate sauce, long lingering depth. I'm not into soggy toothpicks and wet grass. So
you're not on chewing on somebody's shoe. So
no, I'm just not into it. You know?
Yeah. I don't think anybody's that.
My 53-gallon barrels, I want them to be, in there a little longer. So for here, it depends on the barrel size that we're talking about. And I agree. I don't think it's fair to say, 4 years in Texas is 1 year in Kentucky or 1 month in Scotland. The big picture, that doesn't really matter. We're here to make the best bourbon we can, in the environment that we get to make it in, the people we're blessed to make it with the raw ingredients available to us. And we set out to make the best bourbon we can, and we try to make better bourbon every day.
So sour mash, sweet mash, which one is it?
This is sweet mash. I have no setback.
And so sweet mash, the great Dr. Pat Heist would always say, for our listeners out there, our new listeners that just come on, because everybody's heard me say this before, is that sweet mash, what that'll do for a whiskey, it doesn't give you that great burn in your chest that a lot of people are scared of, right?
So sweet mash and sour mash have different flavor profiles on different palates, without a doubt. And for me, on my palate, the reason that I'm a big sweet mash person is it is more enjoyable from front to back, and that long lingering finish is more enjoyable for my palate than if I make a mash using setback or sour mash. If I'm taking some of those wet distiller's grain, a percentage of them, and adding it to that next batch to let it ferment, the esters change in that fermentation cycle, and it comes through the distillate, and then it ends up in the barrel, and it ends up in my glass. And for my palate, it's just not as enjoyable. And like I've said a couple of times, I'm here to make the best bourbon I can, try to make better bourbon every day. And sweet mash was our recipe to accomplish that goal. And, we didn't have 100+ years of, there's some cool taglines out there. Hey, a little bit of our very first batch from 18 blah, blah, blah is in this batch. We didn't have that. We started 15 years ago. We didn't have a batch, we didn't need to do setback. With today's technology, all stainless steel, the ability to keep everything sanitized and clean and monitor our pH, and we just didn't need it. And it's more enjoyable on my palate if it's a sweet base, mash.
Yeah, I dig sweet mashes. Everything has its place, I think, right? But I think for a sweet mash, more people would enjoy it if they're a new whiskey drinker. And I would always try to steer them that way and say, hey, this might be a bourbon that you want to try. If you're a new whiskey drinker, it's not so hard on your palate, right? Where this still has a little bit of spice to it, that white pepper spice that I like. Not overpowering to you, where it doesn't kill that sweetness out, if you get what I'm saying. Yeah,
without a doubt. And I'm on your side. Yeah, all I make is sweet mash, so I want everyone drinking sweet mash. So, but I do agree with you that it is a little more enjoyable for most palates, and that this isn't, wheated bourbons are typically a little sweeter on the front, but for Garrison Brothers, it's still really important to know that you have a bourbon in your hand, on the nose and on the palate. So yeah, there's some spice in there. Maybe not the Texas spice that that people may associate with Texas, but there's definitely the white pepper. Those floral notes can be spicy on some sensitive palates, and even a cinnamon can be spicy on certain palates.
Sure. Yeah. Well, heck, what's the next whiskey you got for us?
So we're going to take a step to one of my newest releases, which is Guadalupe. And as I'm out there in the barns tasting barrels to support small batch bourbon, I come across barrels that on my palate have a lot of port characteristics. They have that raspberry, that cinnamon, that chocolate sauce, that caramel, things that I enjoy in a port. And why not highlight those? Why not bring those a little closer to the front of the palate so more folks can enjoy it and have those great positive associations? So Guadalupe is a beautiful 4 to 6 year old bourbon that I finished for a couple of years in port barrels that I source to highlight what I'm putting in there. I'm not introducing anything new. I'm only using that second barrel to highlight what I already taste, so more palates can enjoy it. I didn't want it to get a little dirty, a little earthy, so I kept it at 107 proof. Didn't add water to it after it left that port barrel. It keeps it really fresh, and it's really enjoyable.
I'm geeking out just a little bit right now because we've had several listeners try to give me a bottle of this, and I had this trip in mind, and I was like, man, maybe I'll get to drink it down there. So I said, I'm going to wait. And I've seen everybody talk about it. I've seen everybody review it. It has hit the rounds, right? Us whiskey nerds love it. But I haven't personally got to taste it. So I'm pretty excited about this right here.
All right. I'm excited too. It never gets old being someone's first. So salute.
Yeah. Cheers. That same nose, but just a little bit more there. That floral notes are coming out in this. Maybe, that you probably around the same age as us, and that potpourri that was big in the 80s, early 90s and stuff. I get that in this glass a little bit.
Yeah, so do I for sure. The floral really sets the stage for your palate. You're going to see that transition, and it's so well balanced from the nose to the finish, and that's really important when you're finishing bourbons. When you're going to manipulate that bourbon and by infusion or by a second barrel, the balance is so important that it doesn't get broken up. And I think Guadalupe is just really balanced from what you get on the nose to that long lingering finish.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
All those same characteristics, a little bit more leathery, a little bit more drying on that back end, maybe coming from that port finish.
Yeah, the port's going to just crisp it up a little bit for sure.
I like it. Not so much spice on that, though, as you would have on your regular Garrison Brothers.
Correct. So when I'm out there tasting those barrels for the small batch bourbon, within a vintage, within a year, I'm being very consistent in the barrels that I'm selecting and marrying together to keep all the bottles we released that year within small batch all the same. And when I'm doing that, so if I come across those barrels that doesn't have that white pepper that you spoke of on the small batch, but it does have, some of those port characteristics. So those barrels didn't go into small batch. They ended up being dumped and then finished in a wet pour barrel.
Awesome. I absolutely love this. I can see why everybody else loves it. Great proof on this at 107. I think whiskey drinkers like me are looking for that little higher proof, where American whiskey drinkers are not accustomed anymore to that 80, 90, right? We're always looking for that. I hate to say this, but 101 or higher.
And that really excites me as, a craftsman, is the flavor always should overpower the proof. If it's ever the other way, there was a mistake. So that everything we're going to taste from 94 proof all the way up to 131 proof Cowboy, the flavor overpowers the proof. And as bourbon drinkers experience more and more of that, they're going to seek higher and higher proofs because there's so much flavor and the water's not changing it. You're actually getting to experience what the distiller got to experience right when it came from the barrel. So you're literally standing in the barn with me because I haven't altered it. I haven't watered it down. I haven't filtered it. I haven't changed it. And I can't have you all in my barn with me. So this is the next best thing.
Sure.
Is that representation of right out of the barrel.
Why did you go with this color of wax right here? So
it pops on the back bar. We have what we call the Garrison Brothers Rainbow, and we're very, very proud of our lineup. But, every single release, every new product has its own color wax, and that copper, color was just, it just makes me feel, like I'm in the still house. It just kind of, those colors, how beautiful that bourbon is, how dark and rich it is. And then with that copper just pops, and, we spend a lot of time standing around big copper stills. So
to me, it's a little bit of burnt orange there, that Texas sunset. Super beautiful. If you ever seen a Longhorn, this color right here, Super Pops. I love it. I love the color. And obviously, your bottles are some of the most beautiful bottles in America, with the silverwork on there, the banding and stuff. I really dig it. You can't get much better than these right here. Man, I'm in awe just driving out here. Me and my brother skipping along down Highway 281 doing about 90 miles an hour. And we're kind of running down memory lane, and being him, because we grew up running these roads, and hoping we don't bump into any of our kids or something that we don't know about out there. But driving up here to the distillery, I was just simply amazed. You guys are like the Maker's Mark of Texas out here. You're not near the city. You're out on a ranch, two different aspects of distilleries, right? So the Maker's Mark of Texas, that's what I'm
yeah. And that's
you.
That's an amazing, statement. That's a hell of a compliment. Dan Garrison, our founder, who you've had a chance to spend some time with, he crawled all over Maker's Mark years and years ago. About 20 years ago, he crawled all over it. And, he walked away from the Kentucky Bourbon Trail and said, I can do this in Texas. And, I've heard him say it 1,000 times before we even got started, was that, I want to do Maker's Mark. We're just going to have to be a little smaller, so for you to make that comment means a ton to us, because it's been our founder's vision. And, it takes a lot more than just a vision, but you have to have that vision. And, you got to follow that with passion and dollars. So,
well, you go in there, show up here, and we go into your bottling room, and very special to me to see your fans, your people that drink your whiskey want to come in and help you out, just to have that connection with you. They're volunteers, really.
Yes, sir. All of Garrison Brothers bottles are all hand dipped by volunteers. 2 days of what we call work, and so every 2 days we get 20 to 25 new volunteers here to help us bottle our bourbon. So, and these are avid fans. No matter where I go, people come up to me and say, they know exactly the bottle range number they got the bottle, what SKU it was. They are avid fans. We kind of get our hooks in them after they come and spend 2 days with us. Yeah,
a lot of veterans in there too. I walked in there, and a lot of them are thanking me for my service and stuff. And how does how would one of our listeners go about getting on that deal right there?
They just jump on the Garrison Brothers website, garrisonbros.com, and scroll on down to the bottom where you can sign up to be a future Texas bourbon bottler. And we make you sign your life away, a couple warnings, and we ask if you really want to come hang out with a couple of rednecks and bottle bourbon. If you check yes, you go into the pool of future bottlers. And if we have a generator that randomly selects about 500 people, monthly, and you answer the email, and you're signed up. You're allowed to sign yourself and one other person up. We ask for 2 days, and we feed you breakfast and lunch. And after your 2 days, we give you a little go bag to enjoy on the way home or when you get home.
Oh, and I'm imagining they get to sip on something while they're here.
We definitely do that.
After they're done bottling?
No, not after. Forget that. So we get started about 9 o'clock in the morning after some type of breakfast casserole or some breakfast tacos, whatever the chefs put together for us. So a little after 9, we'll get started, and we start right off with a quality control shot. To my knowledge, I've been making Dan and Charlie's bourbon for them for a little over 15 years. To my knowledge, I haven't released any bad bourbon, and I don't want to start. So about every 30 minutes, I have all the volunteers do a quality control shot, just to make sure I don't ever release any bad bourbon. So, little taste every 30 minutes just ensures that it's good quality Texas straight bourbon whiskey that most palates are going to enjoy.
I would be covered in wax. It would be a horror scene right there. I'd be burned up from that wax and stuff. But it was amazing to see them doing that, and that they were just. If you've ever seen the movie Elf, and all the little elves in there working, they were just the happiest little elves, and they're just dipping bourbon bottles, so just going to town on it. I love to see that. I love to see other whiskey drinkers with that passion that I have. And it shows that you guys are very compassionate about the people that are drinking your whiskey and giving back to that community of whiskey nerds out there.
For sure. We have this amazing platform and we get to use it in many different ways. And I have so many positive takeaways from having the opportunity to make bourbon for Dan and Charlie. But something that I never even dreamed of, I never thought of, it never crossed my mind, but some of the most positive takeaways have happened around that bottling table. It's just amazing the people that I've had an opportunity to bottle bourbon with and get to know. And I mean, from astronauts to, to homemakers and everything in between. It's really been amazing.
That's pretty amazing. Before we finish up this first half, and we got a second half with some amazing stuff going to happen here at this table. Big guys, kind of like what we're about to do. But, I want to kind of go from, where did you go? You were in the Air Force, right? And how long did you serve? I
spent 10 years in the United States Air Force.
Wow, that's a lot of people. That's a career, right?
Yeah, I was just right at that spot where I had to make that decision. My grandfather always was tinkering with stills. I grew up around stills. I always had the passion that I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I just had to find the right fit. I come from a big military family and joined the United States Air Force. I don't regret a minute of it. It was a great decade of my life. But it's, the sacrifices that the families have to make for all of our men and women who serve our country really gets overlooked. And I'm a big old guy, but I'm really not that tough. And when my little boy, Cal, was begging me not to leave and when I was going to be back, it was time for me to follow my true passion, which was to make bourbon. And I seeked Dan and Charlie Garrison out, and they didn't know it, that they were going to hire me. It took me a little bit to convince them, but I literally just showed up on their doorstep and told them who I was and told them I was going to make their bourbon for them.
And it happened just like that.
It took about 6 months of me kind of freelancing and harassing Dan, but he says I tricked him. I say he finally came around to his senses, but we still have that same argument 15 years later. So,
well, I'd say he made a damn wise decision.
See, you're on my side. I like it.
What you should do right now, Dan, I know you're going to listen to this. You should double Donis's pay is what you should do. He deserves it. Maybe give a little bit to Blake for setting all this up, but
there we go. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. It's a win-win is what I call that.
I like win-wins.
As long as I get to still drink your whiskey. I mean, I guess that's what well, listeners, on the second half, we're going to come back. We're going to drink a third bourbon that you guys have, and then we'll drink a cocktail. And there's this little bitty barbecue joint down the road from you guys. I think there's some of that in the room. I can smell it.
Oh yeah, we're going to tear that up.
We'll go eat some barbecue, and we're going to pair that with a cocktail from here at Garrison Brothers. So stick with us. We'll be right back. Listeners, you know what I love? I love making it old fashioned, but instead of using simple syrup, I like to use maple syrup. And the best kind of maple syrup you can use is from Seldom Seen Farms up in Ohio. It's aged 6 to 9 months in bourbon barrels. It takes that flavor out of there, meshes with that maple syrup. It is just some goodness in a bottle and stuff. They were actually the 2021 grand champion of the Maple Festival. You're not going to get much better than that. They got all other kinds of products. You can order it by the case of 12 bottles. That's how I roll. I eat a lot of pancakes, eat a lot of waffles, eat a lot of chicken and waffles. We make a lot of cocktails, and that's what me and Jim like to use in our cocktails. They've got some cotton candy that they spin out of this. They also have some bourbon maple candles. You can get all kinds of stuff at their website. Hell, they even sell some buttermilk pancake mix to go along with that maple syrup. So check them out at seldomseenmaple.com. Tell them the Bourbon Road sent you. This is a family owned and operated maple farm. He's in that season right now where he's extracting that maple. sap out of those trees. He's got about 2,500 of them, and he takes them into his big old cookhouse there, cooks it down, bottles it up, and sends it out to us. It doesn't get much better than that. Like I said, family owned and operated up in Ohio, seldomseenmaple.com. You're going to love it. All right, listeners, we are back, and it's about to go down right here in this little room. So, Donis, we got a whiskey in our glass. What do we got right here?
All right, we're getting ready to enjoy some Garrison Brothers Texas Straight Bourbon Whiskey Cowboy Bourbon. And Cowboy Bourbon is a cask strength, unfiltered expression. This is the 7th vintage that I put together, which is our 2021 Cowboy, 131 proof. And what Cowboy Bourbon is when I'm out there in the barns tasting barrels to support small batch bourbon, I come across what I call my piggy banks. Remember when you're a little kid, you wanted to figure out how much money you had, you grab your piggy bank and shake it. By now, you all figured out I never really grew up. I'm still shaking stuff to figure out how much I got. So when I'm out there tasting the barrels for small batch bourbon, I come across barrels that are almost completely empty, and I tag those as my piggy banks. And I don't taste them right then and there. I don't know if you've ever licked a Kool-Aid packet, but when I was a young child, I did. And, I love orange Kool-Aid, and I loved my mom's orange Kool-Aid. About 8 or 9 years old, I looked over on the green Formica countertop, and I saw the aluminum foil ripped open, and I saw those orange sparkles. And by now, you figured out I'm not real bright, but I was like, I love orange Kool-Aid. It must have came from that. That has to be amazing. And I licked the damn Kool-Aid packet. About ruined orange Kool-Aid for me. And my Cowboy Bourbon barrels are just like that, those piggy banks. Right then and there, I got a job to do. It's a really good job, but I got to find 50 to 55 barrels to marry together to produce small batch bourbon. And everyone's always waiting on me to put more bourbon together for small batch. We're truly blessed. So I don't taste those piggy banks right then. I just round them all up, put them over in the corner, and then wait a couple of more years and start tasting my way through those. And all those flavors that should be dispersed over 15 gallons or 30 gallons or 53 gallons are concentrated, condensed down to 1 or 2 gallons. I marry all those piggy banks together, and I don't do anything else. It goes into a bottle, into your glass. So this is as close as you're ever going to get with tasting barrels right out in the barrel barn with me. And even though it flirts with hazmat up there in those 130, 140 proof range, I still firmly believe that the flavor overpowers the proof. And this is just going to be delicious with what we're getting ready to dig into.
Well, first, your package, you must have had that rich kind of Kool-Aid, because ours doesn't have no sugar in it. I don't know if you've ever tasted Kool-Aid without sugar before. It's not the best tasting stuff in the world.
I said it damn near ruined orange Kool-Aid for me. Yeah, it blew my palate out. It was so intense, and it was not what I was thinking. Yeah, that gallon that my mom made with the 2 cups of sugar added to it and the good old well water, that's what made it real good. It wasn't those orange sparkles on that aluminum foil.
Did it make you feel like you were going to go to space?
Oh, man. I don't know where I was headed, but I knew I didn't do it twice. Let's just say that.
I think we both been there before. We for sure has. Well, already nosing this thing is just, it's like walking into a candy store, right? Buttered toffee right there. I could go on and on about the complexities of just the nose of this. Cooking caramel. So much of that just cooking sweetness and stuff. Walking into a cinnamon bun store, right? It's all there.
Yeah, it has a real sticky bun, not only aroma, but on your palate.
Yeah, that cinnamon's in there a little bit. Mitch is in here, my little brother. He's been on a podcast before, but he's about he's about to tear up some barbecue over here. But we'll drink this first, the Cowboy. I got the s'mores on there, that graham cracker toasted. Yeah, it doesn't drink 131 though, to me.
And that's what I want to hear. I love hearing the toasted marshmallow and the sticky bun and cinnamon bomb. Yeah, those are fun. Those are good positive associations for people. But the big takeaway for me is the flavor overpowers the proof. And when, that Guadalupe at 107 or the Balmorhea at 115 or Cowboy up there 130, 140 proof, when people consistently say, well, it doesn't drink like that, then your flavor overpowers your proof, and you're doing it right.
Now, you new listeners out there that just started drinking whiskey, just started listening to us. I do not believe this is a whiskey for a brand new whiskey drinker. You get a year into it, 2 years into it. I think this is probably that range you might be able to handle. You kind of got to work your way to this, because a lot of people would drink this and be like, oh my God, this just took my britches off. But if you've been drinking for whiskey for a couple years and you want to try something that's very exceptional, this is it right here, the Cowboy. It will pair perfectly because of the sweetness with some beef, right? With some ranch style beans we're about to eat up. But such a beautiful expression of whiskey, Donis. I got to compliment you on this. I would put this right here, and I don't think I've ever had the Cowboy before. I'd put this right up there in my top 5 of wheated bourbons all time right here.
Well, thank you. It's really special to us. Cowboy bourbon really put us on the map, and we're truly blessed that we get to make bourbon every day. And the Cowboy, I don't make a bunch of it, but like you said, it's not a starter bourbon. This is someone who knows the proper way to nose bourbon and taste bourbon, and has had an opportunity to enjoy a lot of different bourbons, and their palate has really grown over, that experience of tasting different bourbons. This, if Cowboy was the first bourbon you ever had, you may not ever have bourbon again, but if it's something that you worked yourself up to, it's probably the last one you'll ever want, and I tell folks all the time, I meet people every day that have a bad bourbon story, and every day I'm giving people a good bourbon story, and that doesn't get old. I
would tell you, my listeners out there, our listeners, that if you can't get your hands on a bottle of Pappy or one of those special wheated bourbons out there, seek out a craft distillery, seek out Garrison Brothers, seek out a bottle of this right here, and you might just be surprised. It'll blow the doors off some of that stuff. And that's come from me that loves Weller Full Proof, loves Weller. I love Maker's Mark, their bottle finish, their cast strength finishes and stuff like that. But this right here is just heavenly. The Wheaty King of Kentucky has put a stamp on this right here.
All right.
For sure. Well, Blake drove down the road. It's almost an hour drive over to a little bitty place called the Salt Lick. It's a little bit famous right here in Texas, right?
Yeah. If you like barbecue and you want some true Texas barbecue, you need to find your way to the Salt Lick.
Now, when you think of barbecue, Donis, you're from Ohio, right? From Marblehead, Ohio, but you've been down here for quite a bit of time right now, right?
I have. Yep.
And you think Texas barbecue, what's the 2 meats that you usually think of?
So, if I'm going to, as you can see, no one else can, I'm definitely not the 2 meat plate guy. I'm more of the 3 or 4 meat plate guy.
Yeah.
But if I was only going to do a 2 meat plate, I've kind of eyeballed the place a little bit. I don't usually go in anywhere I'm going to eat. I'm not going in blind. I'm pretty serious about what my grub. But no matter what, I'm getting the brisket. That's the benchmark. I'm putting everybody's brisket, against my brisket.
Yeah.
That's what we do. And that second meat is going to be the little bit of research I've done or eyeballing the place. But it's typically going to be sausage, the German heritage here in the Texas Hill Country, they make some amazing sausage because they process that, maybe the pig or the cow or the venison, the deer, and these folks make their own sausage. And that's just a whole other level from where I grew up is, most of these folks that are serving you sausage, they're literally making the sausage. And I almost always go with brisket and a sausage.
And a lot of people don't realize here in Texas that right down the road here, there's 2 famous towns. As we're driving in, me and my little brother are talking about it. And I actually asked Blake about this. There's Lukenbach, Texas. It's to me, it's world famous. And then me and him were talking about it. I was like, maybe not everybody knows that song, has heard of it. Maybe that's not famous to them. Maybe it's just us that it's famous for, right?
Yeah, not disagreeing. I'm sure there's a lot of people that maybe never heard the song and don't know anything about Luckenbach, Texas, but you go over there on a Saturday, you think the whole world knows about it. Thousands of cars a day go through there. I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's not much, but it's Luckenbach.
I got to say, there's actually 3 famous places right in this area. And really 4 now. Hye Texas put on a map by you guys. But Fredericksburg was one of the largest German settlements in America when it was founded. A lot of people don't know that. And that's how kind of Texas got its sausage making. You go to Texas barbecue and you'll see sausage, right? You'll see it everywhere. Some people think that's a little weird. They're like barbecue and sausage, don't really go together. But that's kind of how kielbasa is. That's kind of how it came about and stuff, is Fredericksburg, Texas. And then you got Johnson City, obviously, he is famous for LBJ, right? Lyndon B. Johnson, his wife, Lady Bird. And then, I forgot about it. We're talking about Fredericksburg, but one of the greatest things to us as military veterans is Admiral Nimitz is from Fredericksburg, Texas.
Yeah, that's right.
Pretty great American right there.
Yeah.
So, a little road trip down Texas history there for you, and why this area is so special. A lot of wine here too, though. So, good Lord, I don't know how many wineries there are, but let's get to this brisket right here. But first, Blake made us some cocktails, or somebody made us cocktails. You heard their bartenders, Blake saying, made the cocktails for us. What kind of cocktail is this? So
we call this a John Daly, and it's good old Texas straight bourbon whiskey, small batch, so our 94 proof. What we started our afternoon off with, and it's got equal parts of iced tea and lemonade. So almost everyone's heard. Now I got to be careful saying that because I think everyone knows a Luckenbach, but about everyone's heard of an Arnold Palmer, which is iced tea and lemonade. And so we took an Arnold Palmer. We put bourbon in it, and it made us think of John Daly because he usually had bourbon inside him. So we call it a John Daly because it's an Arnold Palmer with some good old bourbon in it.
I mean, if I drink this all day long, I could drive a golf ball 500 yards too.
Yeah. I'm thinking you could probably already hit it 350, 400. You're a pretty big old boy. So we get you fueled with some John Dalys. I think you're flirting with driving to par 5s.
I'm going to pick up some new wives along the way. So right in front of us from the Salt Lick, like I said, if you haven't been there, you got to go. They got an amazing looking pit when you go in there where all the meat is resting and stuff, an open fire, briskets laying out there, sausage hanging. It's an amazing sight, amazing smells. It's a BYOB. So you can come to Garrison Brothers, grab some whiskey, and you can walk in that place and pour your own whiskey, right?
That's right. And it never gets old. We do it about once a week. So it's BYOB. And you're right. That pit just takes you back. It's probably one of the most photographed barbecue pits in the world. And what always makes me happy is every time I see one of those posts on social media, there's a 15-gallon whiskey barrel sitting there that they knock the top out of, that they keep their mop in, what they're keeping all those ribs sauced with. And that's a used Garrison Brothers barrel. Years and years ago, the Salt Lick aged some of their traditional barbecue sauce in some of our barrels, and then they turned them into, decor around. And so it's always fun to see that barrel.
Amazing. And I know for a fact they have lemonade, they have sweet tea over there. So you can make your own John Daly with your whiskey from Garrison Brothers that you came here and picked up. So that's something that you want to do. We gave you all that right there in one little Texas road trip. There's some great little Airbnbs around here, some VRBOs, whatever bed and breakfasts you can stay at. But we're going to tear this up for a minute. So give us a break. So listeners, we just I don't know if you could say sucked down or inhaled some brisket, some sausage, some German potato salad that has no mustard in it or no mayonnaise, some ranch style beans, as I like to call them. Is that what you'd call them too? Ranch style beans?
Yes, sir.
Man, we were talking the other day. I could just eat eat a can of ranch style beans. Oh,
yeah. I'm sure all three of us have done it.
That's high living right there.
That's right. And I bet all three of us have done it right out of the can.
Yeah. That's the only way to do it, actually. In the middle of the night, about 2:00 in the morning. That's the way I like to do it. But we finished. We drained our cocktails. I did, anyways. And it's a dangerous cocktail. I noticed you drained yours too.
Oh yeah, they don't last long.
Yeah, we're sitting here telling stories about your bottlers and stuff, and some dancing that's going on out there.
That John Daly is sneak up on you. You know, it's equal parts iced tea, lemonade, and bourbon, and it's a easy drinker. So it'll have you dancing in no time.
Well, it paired perfectly with barbecue. Sweet tea and barbecue go together, anyways. So, you know, we had brisket from Salt Lick, sausage from Salt Lick, beans and potato salad. No bread needed on this. And it was served on it looks like a giant pecan log to me, which is even more amazing. Drinking this John Daly made with your guys' bourbon, iced tea and lemonade. What a day. What a day it's been out here. Your team is phenomenal. I love it. What's Garrison Brothers got coming down the pike, though? Is there anything special coming down the pike?
There is. I've been working the last decade or so on some different finishing and our Honeydew Bourbon, which is barrels that on my palate have a natural wildflower, floral, subtle honey notes. We turn it into our Honeydew Bourbon. I infuse that bourbon with Burleson's Texas Organic Wildflower Honey, and we bottle it at 80 proof. So when it's still at cask strength after the infusion, I've been taking that bourbon and filling cognac barrels and letting those cognac barrels with that cask strength honeydew rest out in Barrel Barn Pavo. And it is the next thing coming down the pike. It's a mouthful. It is a honey infused cask strength cognac finished bourbon. And it is worth trying to fight saying all that because it is special.
Good Lord.
I think we should go taste some.
I think we should.
Yeah.
I see Mitch over there just shaking. He's sucking down his John Daly.
Yeah, he's getting his cup ready.
Yeah, he's getting his cup ready. We'll go do that and stuff. I just can't wait for that and stuff. Those, as you guys like to say, those busy little Texas bees that have been sucking down some bluebonnet flowers. If people don't know, their listeners out there, bluebonnet flower is the Texas flower. A little more Texas history for you.
That's right. Yeah.
Making that honey for that bourbon, and this is going to be a special one. And you said cask strength, right?
It is.
Oh man.
Yeah, it is cask strength. Not to beat a dead horse, but it's something special when you can elevate that alcohol content, but the flavor really masks it. And but it's fun to release those high proof releases, and people are blown away, and that it never gets old when people say, "Oh, it doesn't drink like that."
Well, Donis, I really appreciate you letting us come to Garrison Brothers. You treated us so amazingly, and I always talk about that as my experience coming into the distillery is how I think a tourist would come in, a whiskey drinker. And I get to actually look out the window here and I see people on tour and they're just finished their tours up. And I don't know if they drink a lot of bourbon on tour, but all I see out there is smiles. And that's a good thing. So thank you so much, Blake. Thank you. Me and Mitch can't thank you enough for letting us come in. I know Jim has missed out on his Texas trip, and he's probably regretting it, but I'm going to make him some John Daly when we get back and put a big old smile on his face, and he'll be saying thank you too. Where can we find Garrison Brothers at on social media online?
Yeah, so start with the Garrison Brothers website, which is garrisonbros.com, and of course, Blake works really, really hard to have, a constant flow of great Facebook and Instagram and Twitter stuff. So, but I would start at garrisonbros.com.
All right. We'll get our listeners to check you guys out, follow you on Instagram, follow you on all your social media. I don't know if you guys are on TikTok. They got you dancing through the barrel house. That'd be pretty amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the guy to that, as you probably already figured out, that's not me. I spend a lot of times in the barns and I do dance, but that next step, that's up to Blake.
I climbed on a buffalo yesterday, so if I can do that, you can do almost anything.
Oh yeah.
People probably wonder how I got up there, but I just hopped right on up there. Well, once again, thank you. Listeners, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Oh, man, did I miss anything? I'm trying to think. We're not on Twitch or anything like that. The main place you can find us is on Facebook. We got a private Facebook group called the Bourbon Roadies. Check it out. 2,500 people strong, growing every day. 3 rules to get in there. Are you 21? Do you like bourbon? I can't imagine anybody not loving bourbon. And do you agree to play nice? Because as we've said before, if you drink from the very bottom of that shelf to the very top of it, we want you to be inclusive in there. Be nice. If you want to celebrate a birth, a death of a family member that loved whiskey and say, hey, raise a glass to this person's life, we want you to do that. If you're retiring, if you are getting promoted, whatever it is, we want to be a celebration in there, a celebration of life, celebration with whiskey. That's what we're all about. Before we go any further, Garrison Brothers, through the Bourbon Road, we're going to do a big old bottle of their Garrison Brothers whiskey with a t-shirt and a glass. What you got to do is noontime is you got to follow Garrison Brothers. You got to follow the Bourbon Road. And what you have to do is tell me the famous admiral from this town right here, from this area. Tell me that famous admiral's name on Instagram on our post. His entire name, his rank, his first name, and his last name. And you'll win that giveaway from us through Garrison Brothers. Thank you guys for giving us that bottle. We do 2 shows a week. We do our review, and then we do our long show with great people like Donis from Garrison Brothers. But the way to figure out how that show's coming out is you need to scroll on up to that app, hit that check sign, that plus sign, that subscribe sign. That'll let you know that show's coming out. The next thing we need you to do is scroll on down, hit that 5-star review, leave us some comments. Those reviews help us get into distilleries. It gets great whiskeys in our hands. It lets us give you great content. You know what's going to happen if you don't, right? The big bad booty daddy of bourbon is going to come knocking on your door. He's going to have arms full of this Garrison Brothers whiskey. We're going to drink all night long. By the end of the night, you're going to be pushing that 5-star review. You're going to be typing away with some comments, but seriously, those 5-star reviews get us in these doors and we really appreciate them. So it'll help us out. We want you to go check out our website, thebourbonroad.com. We got our swag on there, the Bourbon Bullshitter t-shirt. I'm actually wearing one right now. You want this shirt right here. We also have our Bourbon Road shirt on there. We have some flasks. We have some Glencairns. We got all kinds of stuff. We'd appreciate if you buy that. We are a veteran-owned and operated business, a podcast. That's what gets us down the Bourbon Road. That's what allowed me to come to Texas and drink whiskey. So we'd appreciate that purchase. We also have our articles on there. I'll be writing a great article about this right here, the Salt Lick, and a recipe for the John Daly drink. So you want to check that out. Best way to reach out to us is probably our emails. He's Jim at the Bourbon Road. I'm Mike at the Bourbon Road. We'd appreciate that on our website. You can contact us on there. If you got a distillery in your backyard you want us to check out, or a whiskey you want us to review, send us a little note. We'll check it out. We'll get in their doors. But probably the best way to find us is go ahead and hit up our DMs on Instagram. He's JShannon63. I'm Big Bourbon Chief, and we'll see you on down the Bourbon Road.